Welcome back to the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Here's SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, all those great platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you know this one is there. It always is. And a big thank you for tuning in today. Today I have a really, really cool interview I did. It's with the local Philadelphia musician, Eddie the Kid. As you guys may know, I recently moved to Philadelphia, so the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast, the Jackson Neill Sports, Jackson Neill Music, all those podcasts now are based out of here in the city of brotherly love. So with that in mind, I wanted to start to get some local musicians onto the show, and I met Eddie the Kid through a mutual person, and we got to connect, and he's a really, really awesome guy, makes some really cool songs. In 2018, he just started releasing some tracks, a lot of live instrumentation. He plays the saxophone, multi-instrumentalist, very, very talented guy. I got the chance to sit down and talk with him for close to an hour. I really enjoyed it, really awesome guy to talk with. I'm looking forward to doing more of these local Philadelphia musician interviews. And I think there's none better to start this kind of series off than with Eddie. Before we jump into that, though, a quick word from this show's sponsor, Believe the Hype. Believe the Hype is a company that sells the latest sneakers. They get the biggest drops, sell them right back to you guys. Follow them on Instagram and Twitter at Believe Hype. Shop, links to that in the description. So with that, let's jump right into this interview I did with Eddie. So, you just want to start off, how did you get started in music? Just, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I've always pretty much been a musical individual. Kind of, my whole musical experience kind of started when I was real little. I mean, both my parents were very musical in terms of, my mom's not really a musician, but she was very heavy into listening to music. She always had a great appreciation for it. And my dad played a little guitar and violin. But from a young age, I was always listening to, from my mom, like the Beatles and Elvis, and more old 40s and 50s and 60s stuff. And my dad was more 70s and 80s, where he liked Pink Floyd, Genesis, some of the more progressive kind of stuff. But really my main instrument is saxophone, and the kind of little funny story of how I got started with that is when I was 4 years old watching Sesame Street. Okay. There was that character Hoots the Owl who played saxophone and put down the ducky with Ernie. And I saw it and I wanted to play it, and I have no idea why, but I told my mom when I was 4 years old, that's what I want to play. So 5 years later, when I turned 9, I opened an alto saxophone for my birthday, and I kind of been playing ever since.
It's so cool though. You just we're that's it. That's the one.
Yeah, I don't know what clicked, but something in my little 4-year-old head told me that's what I wanted to play. I like the sound of it, and that's still my favorite instrument to this day.
I mean, it just has such a unique sound, I think. Any song where you hear a saxophone, it's automatically oh, that stands out.
It's sexy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a sexy instrument.
That's sexy sound. I think that's kind of, and touching on your influences there, you saying your mom, your dad listened to all these decades spanning of music. I mean, what do you say, from the 40s almost to the 80s, it was just this wide range.
I mean, even as far back, as a horn player, drawing influences even from the Roaring 20s, kind of with the whole big band sound. Yeah. There was really no limit to what was being played around the house. It was anything from old stuff, and someone like my grandmother, she's someone who you can say, "Hey, Grandma, I can't remember the name of this song, but it goes like this." You can hum 2 notes, and she knows it. So it's I've always been surrounded by people who love music, and I think that's kind of why I was kind of pushed into that. It was natural, It just kind of was something that I fell in love with pretty much immediately.
Yeah, just a kind of natural thing. You weren't I think pushed into it. Not really that. It's more just this is a natural kind of progression into it.
Yeah, just kind of naturally, organically, kind of came about.
And and I think when you say naturally and organically, we were talking a little bit earlier about how you used to go here. We're recording this at Temple University. You used to go here to Temple University for 2 years, and then you left to pursue music, right?
Yep, that's correct. I was here, graduated high school in 2014. Came to Temple, was here for a little over 2 years. I liked being here, but I didn't like it as much as, being on the stage or in the studio. I knew I wanted to play. It got to the point where, we were kind of talking a little earlier, I was skipping class to go practice or go play more than I was doing my homework. And you don't get a degree that way.
Yeah, you definitely don't. So, at that point, you got to figure, I'm skipping class anyway. Might as well just go do the thing I love, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much what it came down to.
It's just such a cool thing right there. And something cool about your name, Eddie the Kid.
Yeah.
I like that name. It's I like the D-U-H. It's a little different there. I read that was from you always being the youngest person in a band, right?
Pretty much. I mean, essentially how I kind of, I've been playing for a while, but I had gotten a call from my one of the 8th grade physics teachers from my middle school, who's a drummer in one of the bands in our area. And he called me up, said, "Hey, I was talking to the school's music teacher, and we were looking for a sax player for the band." And by this point I had graduated. I was, I think, already at Temple, so I was like 18 or 19. And they called me up, and I started gigging with them. Pretty much, long story short, was with them for about a year. That was one of the first bands that I kind of seriously got into, that kind of launched the whole, my whole professional career as far as like a saxophone player. And pretty much is that all these other dudes in the bands that I started playing with were in their 40s and 50s, and I'm like 18. So everybody was just like, "Oh, the kid's here," and that just kind of became the running joke. And now pretty much in the whole scene, everybody knows me as Eddie the Kid. So that's kind of my,
just stuck at that way.
It pretty much stuck, and that's my, my stage name. That's what you can look me up on Spotify and all that stuff. That's kind of how I go by.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, now now you're releasing your own tracks. We'll get to that in a little bit. But before, you said you've played with a ton of bands. You still do that. That's how that's what you've been doing, playing saxophone for tons of bands.
Yep. Essentially, that's my bread and butter. I do play guitar and sing and do some other stuff, but sax is kind of, that's at the heart of it all.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw that you mentioned in like one of your bios that you're a multi-instrumentalist. What other stuff do you do? Like you said, guitarist a little bit there, but like what else?
Yeah, so like, I obviously we touched on sax. I took formal lessons for that since I was little, but I taught myself guitar. I can kind of mess around on the keys, like on piano a little bit. I do sing a lot. I've fronted a lot of bands where I've written for different stuff before, whether it's like blues rock or funk or different stuff. And oftentimes I end up being the front man, maybe not even because I have the best voice, but just because I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
And because that's just sometimes how it happens. So, sax, guitar, a little bit of piano, singing. I've picked up a clarinet. I own a flute.
Everything.
Bass. It's the only thing I would really love to kind of mess around on drums. I haven't really explored that instrument too much. But one of my mottos, besides actually being interested in just learning how to play different musical instruments, it also makes you just more marketable and more valuable.
Exactly.
Because then you can get more gigs. If instead of doing one thing, you could do multiple things. So it's kind of like a jack of all trades. Obviously rooted at that is that I actually love to play different things. So it kind of is necessity and just general interest.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you said right there that your voice, maybe not the best. If I could give you one compliment, it would be that I think your voice fits very perfectly over the kind of the sounds you create on your songs.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's kind of funny because it's not something that I necessarily intend to do. It's I think in terms of my voice, it's something that I've always kind of been self-conscious of. I never wanted to sing when I was little. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of just started in when I was in probably late middle school, early high school, kind of wanting to take the lead a little bit and wanting to kind of explore how my voice, could sound and see if I could sing as a lead singer. And it's not something that I'm still super comfortable with. I know that there's people all these amazing pop singers and people who are as interested in singing as I am in saxophone. Mm-hmm. But I do like to sing, and I think my voice definitely flourishes over more folksy or bluesy kind of genres.
Yeah, and I think that takes us into your own songs now. Mm-hmm. Two of my favorites, I told you this, Rain Comes Down in Philadelphia, two songs that I really love. And I think the cool thing about both those songs is that, as soon as I started playing them, it just sounded like your voice sounded very unique. I was like, okay, this is what Eddie the Kid sounds like? And then it almost feels like if I were to hear you on a track now, I'd be like, oh, that's him.
That's definitely a compliment. I take that to heart. Thank you. I guess that to me is kind of what I'm going for, whether that's intentional or not. I mean, I think everybody can identify an Elton John song, exactly, or Billy Joel or Led Zeppelin. People know when they hear a voice, and I guess that's why I take that as a true compliment, because I've also gotten that I sound very similar live to how I sound on the recording, and that's something I also pride myself in, because I don't like auto-tune. I don't like messing with too much editing. I like a very raw, natural sound. So I want what you're hearing is what I sound like.
And yeah, that's literally something else I have like kind of written down and like noted is that I feel like when I'm listening to those songs, I'm sitting at a bar, and you're up on stage because it has that natural kind of feel. And that's something I've heard about you is that you like that instrumentation aspect.
Yeah, I really like live instrumentation. I mean, especially in the age of, this is the digital age of where everybody's like adding some sort of technology into their music and how they create, which is awesome. And that's something that I'm trying to do more because that's something that I've always kind of shied away from, whether it's because I just don't like it or can't figure it out or whatever it is. Maybe I'm an old man. But like in general, I really have always appreciated, especially coming from such like a classic rock kind of like upbringing. Like some of my inspirations, like being the Allman Brothers, Zeppelin, the Beatles, like all the '60s classic rock guys, and they were all generally like 4-piece, guitar, bass, drums, and like a singer, maybe a keyboard player. Mm-hmm. So I've always really tended to write in that kind of way for that kind of instrumentation, and I really like seeing what people can do with just raw talent instead of just relying on a piece of digital equipment, which in the hands of the right person, if you get someone who's talented already and then adding some digital stuff on top of it, it's like mind-blowing, mm-hmm. which is like definitely awesome. But that's something that I'm kind of trying to force myself to get more comfortable with.
No, I mean definitely though. Like I think you're completely right. We're in the digital age, but I think that your talent as a all these instruments that okay, maybe you don't know the digital stuff yet, mm-hmm. but if you look at, I feel like, at some of the biggest people that use digital equipment now, yep. they all started on real instruments. Those are the real successful people. Yep. So I think you have the skill set that's going to easily translate to the digital.
And I think also just naturally as a horn player, and nowadays they have other, technology, but as a sax player, you have to learn it. It's an acoustic instrument, so there's no amps or pedals or digital stuff. I mean, now there is for it, which is awesome, which is something, like I said, I'm actually getting into. But as a sax player, there is no, like as a guitar player, there's a lot of young guys who they want to pick up an electric guitar and they want to, what are the pedals that Jimi Hendrix was using, and they want to just rip right away. But something that I've always tried to encourage younger kids to do is to really pick up an acoustic guitar, because that's where you learn the instrument. And that's where you really learn what your hands are doing, how you're moving. Like you really connect with the instrument, and like when it's acoustic. And then once you do that, once you add all the effects and all the digital stuff in, then you've already got the talent, and then that's just complementing your sound instead of the other way around. And as a sax player, you kind of naturally have that because there is no electronics. You just pick up your sax. It's a piece of metal. You put a wood reed on your mouthpiece, and you kind of just
go.
You just go.
Yeah, and I think with the acoustic guitar is a really good example, because also I think when someone with an acoustic guitar, there's less stuff like hide behind, whether it's like all all that like digital stuff. I think that also produces, if you look at some of the best songwriters in today, course of history, mm-hmm. some of their best songs sound better acoustically because that's probably how they intended to write it. And then they're like, oh, I gotta make this for the radio or whatever. Yep. Let me add some stuff in.
Yep. I always appreciate when you hear on the radio station, sometimes they'll do like a stripped down Sunday or an unplugged or some stuff like that. And it's cool because even like MTV Unplugged used to do that all the time, where like Nirvana would go in and they have classic concerts where you're seeing what their songs sound like stripped down. Mm-hmm. And all of this being said, I wanted to go on the record that I'm not against technology. Okay. I love all that stuff, and you could do some crazy things. And like I said, one of my current projects is building a pedal board for my sax, because it is possible, and there are some really great players out there that hook their sax through their mic into a guitar pedal rig. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
That's awesome.
It's crazy, and that's something that I'm trying to push myself into, because that's something that I've never really explored or gotten into. And I think now I'm starting to hear some of that in my head, and I want to explore and try to figure out what that can offer me, because I think now that I've spent over a decade getting comfortable with my instrument, and I feel like I'm at the level where now I feel comfortable adding some of that in.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. I mean, then it's the fact, again, get comfortable with the instrument, then add the extra things on there.
Yep. Yep.
And speaking of like that, like kind of acoustic stripped down sound, you ever heard the Coffee House on Sirius XM? They do a lot of like acoustic stuff. I always love listening to that.
It's fun. Yep.
Yeah, because you hear that whether it's covers or you hear these other people with their songs, it's like, wait a second, this is just with a guitar or something like that. You can really hear the song and the lyrics in a different light.
Yeah, there's like a raw element to it, I guess you could say.
Yeah, exactly. Like same with like your music. Let's see where we want to go. Oh, I saw this as well. That you are among the founders, or one of the founders, of the Jams Music and Arts Festival in Elverston, Pennsylvania. Can you tell me a little bit about this?
Yeah, you really did your homework.
Exactly. I always got to do that. I want to know the musicians I'm talking to.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so that is a cool. I'm really fortunate to have been a part of that event. We just did so every August, I guess. We just had our third one this past August, and it's the Jams Music and Arts Festival. It's out in Chester County, which is about an hour away west of Philadelphia, near Pottstown, where I grew up. And essentially it started off 3 years ago as a way for, pretty much it was like the best way to get a gig is to create your own.
That's a good point.
You know, instead of trying to go through all the effort of booking your own band at a bar or any other venue at another festival, let's create our own and we'll headline it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like it kind of became that, and then we just pretty much just found all of our friends and family who were in different groups in the area, and we just booked a day-long event of pretty much just all of our friends jamming out on an old farm. It's on old horse farm. And then the next year it got bigger and better. We moved it to the field next door, and we had an old horse barn that we converted into a stage. Me and my buddy Jake Schaff and Thomas Shania, my sister Erica, her friend Maggie and Fiona. It was like this close-knit group of people that we all went to high school with, and we all pretty much just contributed to try to make it bigger and better every year. And now this past year, we over the past couple of years, we've had like about 500 to 1,000 people out. We were partnered with Victory Brewing last year. This year we had a local brewery called Defy Gravity Brewing out of Wilmington, Delaware. We had a whole like art bazaar where we had arts and crafts out there, people selling anything from food to shirts to tie-dye to records. And then I did all the booking, so since I'm pretty well connected at this point with all the different bands in the Philly, Jersey, and Delaware areas, so I just hired all these different groups to come out, and we pretty much were out on the horse farm from we were out there very early setting up, a lot of preparation, but we had bands going from like noon to midnight almost.
Wow.
All day. And we had a main stage and an acoustic side stage.
Okay.
So 45-minute sets on the main stage, and then when they were changing over, everybody would switch over and look at the acoustic stage for like a 15-20-minute intermission, and we just kept going back and forth all day.
That's awesome, yeah. And I love to hear that stuff too, like, you know, you and this friend and your sister, and it's like, It's so cool to hear that about like the local music scene and how it's just so, like you said, connected. It's like we're buddies back from high school. It's just it's very just unique and just, I think, kind of again natural kind of thing.
Well, and that's kind of also like I really like grassroots organizations, and you know I like local organizations, stuff that you can, you know, where you can shake their hand and know their name. You know, like it's not like the more you talk to people, and I guess the point I'm making is that, you know, if you, and I guess this makes me sound kind of anti-digital again, anti-technology, but instead of everybody being on their phones and everything, like you can really get to know a lot of awesome people in your area that have so many resources. Like we were able to book so many different bands and so many artists and vendors just from just asking around, and you never know who does what until you really like dig deep, and all of a sudden you realize that, who knows, Susie runs a clothing shop that you never even knew about, and then all of a sudden she's selling her like vintage clothing at your festival. Yeah. It's like crazy shit like that where it's perfect. It's amazing, and then like there's just so many resources if you really like dig deep and just look what's around you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's so that's so right. I mean, it's something like, you know, the digital's great and all. Like, it's really like, it's for my show, let's say, like it's cool. Like I get to do these interviews from like people maybe across the country or in a different continent.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't shit on it too much. Yeah, we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, but it's the cool part of just like, you know, right now, like I think this is already one of my favorite interviews just from the sit down aspect of it. It's that face to face connection it always comes down to.
Yeah, that's kind of how, you know, I said to you too at the beginning. Like I'm a very blunt person. Like I say what's on my mind and how I'm feeling. I don't like to sugarcoat too much shit because I like to live from the heart kind of a
Exactly.
deal. That's kind of how I operate, which is, for the record, gotten me in a lot of trouble over the years.
Yeah,
But it's
not
also helped me out too, you know. I mean, it kind of keeps me honest and keeps me happy, and that's kind of, you know, circling back to how I made the decision, which was a difficult one, to, you know, drop out of Temple and pursue music full time, because I had to be honest with myself and say, you know, like, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing right now, and I know how I can be, and I know what I want to be doing. I know what's going to fulfill me, even though it's a hard road to take. It's not something that a lot of people want to support, because, you know, it doesn't make a whole bunch of money right away. Like, there's a lot of hard work involved, and you know, it's also frowned upon a lot nowadays to not have a degree, which it was a hard decision to make. You know, like, I love academics, I promote being in school, but I also promote being happy and doing what you love. And that's kind of the decision I had to make, and, you know, I don't regret it at all.
I mean, I just want to touch on that. Like, so it was a tough decision for you, even with, like, the love of it. I mean, I could imagine, because, you know, like you said, there's so much pressure these days. Get a degree.
Yep.
And everyone knows the stories. You get out with tons of student debt. And you know, even the people with the degrees don't even find the best jobs all of a sudden. But, like, how long of a process was it for you where you first thought, I need to drop out of school, before you were actually able to do it?
I mean, I guess, you know, probably I was in school for like about two-ish years, a little over, like two years and some change. And I think every day I was in school, I was thinking, it was one of those, every class I sat through, it was like, you know, I'd really love to be just playing my horn right now. I'd really love to just be like working at something musical. And it's like, you know, but like, I should sit down and focus. I got to ground myself. You know, I started off studying bioengineering here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then was doing all right, and then switched to political science and Arabic, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was just kind of studying whatever I wanted, really, just kind of exploring, seeing if there was anything else that I would be interested in other than music. And really, it just came to the point where I was like, this feels silly. I know what I'm doing. What I want to be doing, I should say. I feel like I'm just wasting money and time at this point. So let's give it a year, because I'm a mix between a dreamer and a realist.
Yeah,
so
you gotta have a little bit of both.
yeah, so like I gave myself a year to see, like, all right, let's see if I can make this work for, you know, 1 year doing music, and it's been like over 2 now, and it's not always easy, but I like challenges too. Like, it shouldn't be easy, I think, and I think I'm still young enough where I should be taking the risk. I don't want to be 40 years old and look back at my life and say, I really should have made that move, and I should have dropped out, and I think I could have been way happier if I pursued music. You know, I'm 22 right now, and I don't see any reason why. I think this is the time I should be doing this.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's so right, because people, I think, these days underestimate the idea. Like, you know, school's always going to be there too.
Yep.
That's another idea I think people get caught up in. So I think I respect that from you, that you're able to realize, look, I mean, I gave it my effort to find if I'm interested in this thing.
Yeah.
And then it just wasn't working out.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to at least, you know, explore the opportunity and see if school was right for me. And I love learning. You know, I've always enjoyed learning new things and new skills, but being in a classroom just isn't as fulfilling to me as being on stage or just playing.
Exactly.
Which is kind of funny. And, you know, fortunately, one of my greatest what's the word I'm looking for, I guess, privileges is having a really supportive family and network of friends who, you know, are so supportive of what I'm doing. You know, people who come out to my shows every weekend and just help me to write better, encourage me, which is, you know, sometimes it can be tough, and sometimes you do kind of, which I think is, you know, how everybody feels about their dream or what they love to do. You have days where you don't want to be doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's
exactly.
like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, I'm going to say, like, there are days where it's like, shit, like, this is not as easy as I wish it was. But, like, at the end of the day, I think that's what, you know, in a cliche way, makes you stronger. And it kind of gets you to the other side, and you learn from, you know, the hard times, and you get better for it. And you just learn along the way. You learn different lessons of, you know, maybe you can't get booked at this venue, or what am I doing wrong? Or is my music not good enough? You know, there's a lot of self-doubt in pursuing such an expressive career.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're literally being judged on the shit that you're creating.
Yeah, it's such a...
Which, when people don't realize, someone will release a new song, like a pop star. They'll release a song and immediately it gets reviewed. You know, it's like, it's such a, like, here it is, here's like what I'm putting out, just judge it. You know?
Exactly, yeah.
It's like it's a weird dynamic, because it's like a lot of people don't experience that, I think. But musicians and artists, I think that's why it can be tough, because sometimes a lot of the time you don't get good reviews, you know?
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of something that you kind of have to be open to, and just try not to compare yourself, and, you know, compare yourself to yourself. And like, I like to create different benchmarks each year. Like, where do I want to be? What venue? Like, what's my goal to play? Where do I want to play? Like, I don't want to be playing, if I'm playing this bar by the time next year, like...
Oh, it's a step, like,
yeah.
I know I'm working hard enough, and I know I'm making the right progress.
Yeah, I want to see progress every year. So it's not something where, you know, musicians get a bad rep. It's like starving artists. You're maybe kind of lazy. You like sleeping until 2 p.m., and it's like, there is a certain extent of that, truthfully. But also, like, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, and a lot of practical, like, business stuff that I think a lot of musicians need to be aware of and need to push themselves towards, or else it's not going to work.
Yeah,
so.
that nice balance. And I think exactly when you were talking about, like, how difficult it is to, like, chase a dream. I know this isn't the best example right now, but Kevin Hart, as a comedian, would tell stories about how when he was starting out here in Philly, he would get booed off stages. Now he's like selling out Lincoln Financial. So it's that crazy thing of, like, I think, you know, everybody kind of has to deal with that with their dream of, like, you're going to get booed off stage. There's not going to be a big crowd. There's going to be a bad review. And I think realizing that, so that when it does happen, it's not as painful. It saves you a lot of, like, time. Yeah,
there's been plenty of gigs where it's like you step off stage for the night and you're driving home and you're just not feeling great about it. You know, you're like, shit, like, I could have done way better, or maybe something wasn't jiving, maybe someone was in a mood, the drummer was, you know, not happy or something, or you're not happy, like, for whatever reason. And you go home and you kind of, like, you have a lot of chances to reflect on what's going on. But at the end of the day, like, in the moment, it's hard to kind of see through that, because you're kind of blinded by emotions. But then later, when you actually look back at it, you kind of realize, like, oh, that one gig a couple years ago, it wasn't maybe not as bad as I thought it was in the moment.
Yeah.
And also, now I realize how I could have improved, and now I've seen changes and I've seen progress. And that's how I keep myself grounded, because if I'm not seeing progress, then I got to go back and see what's not going right, what's going wrong, and how I can, you know, fix different things and just be a better musician and a better person, kind of.
And I think that with progress, too, another thing is really important is judging yourself by the right standards. Because I feel like, especially, like, you know, you hear musicians a lot of times, it's like, oh, well, you know, what's your goal? My goal is to have a #1 album.
Yeah.
Well, you know, maybe the goal should be make your best feeling music. Maybe it should be play this venue, or, like, I don't know,
I like that you bring that up, because that's been something that, as I grow older and as I mature, that's something that changes with me too. Because, like, when I was younger, you know, it's like if you want to be a musician, it seems like at first it's like, you know, I want to be known, I want to be famous. Like, you want
that rock star lifestyle.
Yeah, you want to live the rock star life. You want to be selling out Wells Fargo and the big stadiums around the country. And then when you get older and, like, you realize that there's a lot more than just being talented that goes into it. There's a lot of luck. It's a lot of who you know. There's a lot of other work that goes into it besides just how musically talented you are. I think you start realizing that there's other ways to make it in music, and there's other ways that you can make it, depending on what your definition of that is. To your point, you know, like I said, when I was younger, I wanted to be selling out stadiums, you know, all that different stuff, and like 22-year-old Ed is like the same. Like, I would love that, but at the same time, from a realistic level, I would really just like to be at a point where you could be financially stable and happy. Like, if I could be playing 7 nights a week and be making all the money I want off of it, and just be living be able to live a nice life, and be able to just like live a life like solely based on music as like my source of income and like as my career, I think I'd be happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think
And-
people underestimate that. Like how many
Yeah.
people do get to make it like that with just having a career in music. That's like you don't need to have everything else. It'd be nice. Be nice certainly still have Wells Fargo, but at the end of the day, just doing what you love.
Well, and there's tons of musicians that are unknown that are some of my favorite musicians. I'm gonna name drop this one guy from Austin, Texas. His name's David Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten the chance to see him 2 or 3 times now when he comes through Philly. He's getting bigger. He's had some songs on some TV shows on like NBC and some different stuff. But like when I first started listening to him, like when I was in late high school, he was still pretty underground, and he does a lot of like kind of country folk kind of stuff, which is like kind of like outlaw country. I'm not a huge pop country person, but I like some of the old outlaw stuff, and he has a great sound. And most people just have never heard of him or other artists like him because he's not in the mainstream and he's not pop.
He doesn't know this person, or he's not
Exactly.
not active on Instagram, or he's whatever. Like
there's so many other things that go into a career in music than just music, which is something that as a little kid you have no idea about.
Yeah.
You're so naive and innocent, and all you want to do is play your instrument and have as many people see you play it and think you're amazing.
Yeah.
And as you grow older, you're like, well, there's so many other things that I can do in the music that will be fulfilling and keep me happy than selling out Wells Fargo.
Exactly.
So it's kind of cool you brought that up because that's something that I think of like every day. And as I grow older, my goals change.
Mm-hmm. And certainly, I think anyone's career, like with this, I try to like not judge myself off the views, but just the quality of conversation or just certain things like that people have.
Yep.
So I want to touch on some of your songs. You have 4 songs out right now.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia, Rain Comes Down. I'm blanking on the other 2 names.
Yeah,
Sorry
that's
about
cool. The other 2 are Get Inside and Come On Pretty Girl.
that. Okay.
And I think the way we said it was in reverse order of how I recorded it, actually.
Okay.
So, as I was kind of mentioning to you, back in March at Mechanizer Studios in Malvern, PA, which is in the suburbs on the main line, with Andrew Curry, I recorded 4 songs in one take, back to back to back to back. All 4 of those songs, I recorded the vocals and guitar, and just got like the foundation tracks done, all back to back. And then did it in like an hour or 2, which is awesome. I like to work quick, save money and time.
Yeah,
no bullshit. Kind of goes along with my personality. And then over the course of the next few months, I just picked each song. So I started with Come On Pretty Girl, Get Inside, Philadelphia, and Rain Comes Down. I just started adding. So I started arranging and figuring out what different instruments I wanted, who I wanted to pull in. I recorded all guitars, electric and acoustic, and sang, and I played sax. And then I pulled in a few different friends who played bass and pedal steel guitar and drums. So I had a few guest musicians who are just all-stars who just killed it. Other guys who work quick and effectively and efficiently. And pretty much Come On Pretty Girl is it's a blues tune that I wrote. And then Get Inside is a song that I had written. Get Inside and Rain Comes Down, I wrote when I was in like 10th grade in high school, and just never felt like the right time to record it. I never was happy with it, and finally it clicked this year of how I heard it in my head and how I wanted it to be. And Andrew at Mechanizer Studios helped me produce it, and he did all the technology stuff while I handled all the music stuff, and it was like the perfect union. And we produced this song that was just exactly how I heard it in my head, which is like the first time that's ever happened. And that's the reason why I hadn't recorded it up until that point, because it just never felt right. Mm-hmm. And finally I got it, and it was just amazing. Like, we did amazing work. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of all the guys I had on the project. And all this stuff's out on all the major platforms, Spotify, YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to list all of them in the description so people have that. At the end we'll do like a quick tag and everything. But I want to touch on just like what about 2018, because these songs released them in 2018. Mm-hmm. What was it about this year that you decided, okay, now it's time for me to release my own stuff under my own name?
Well, I guess it was really a couple of different things. I mean, at the end of 2017, it was kind of going back to me setting different benchmarks for myself each year. It was, I was talking to my mom and my aunt and kind of discussing where I was going to go the next year, like kind of discussing some of these goals I have for myself for the upcoming year. And I'm not a huge New Year's resolution guy, so like I didn't really think of it as that, but I really kind of try to internalize what progress that I want to see with myself, and really it was getting more of my own original stuff out, because I'm kind of like the eternal side man in terms of, like I was saying to you, I kind of whore myself out to any band that will take me, and I'll play sax all night, you know, just to get as much exposure as possible and to have the most fun playing of, you know, multitude of genres. So I love doing it, but at the same time, I felt like I needed to be releasing some of my own stuff that I wrote, that I was playing more instruments on, so people can see how diverse my skill set is, and also just because it's so fun to be able to sit down in a studio and just play different instruments and just create something. You know, there's guys like Steve Winwood and Paul McCartney who pretty much recorded albums all by themselves on playing all the different instruments.
Prince did that. I think it was his first album.
There's so many guys that are like that, and I did have help from guys, but I really took pride in the fact that I was playing most of like the majority of the instruments on each track, which is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. So I guess the reason that 2018 was the year was just because I kind of put my foot down with myself and was like, all right, asshole, you got to just do this shit. Stop talking about it and just, you know, like just actually record it and just get it out there. Because I think for a while I was struggling with the fact that what if I put it out and it's not good enough? And I know so many of my friends who have the same feeling and have recorded something and then they just never put it out, or they re-record it, or they're not happy with it. And I think another thing with me growing older and getting more mature is realizing that you gotta put out songs, like, because that's part of your history as a musician. Like, you can't put out, like, if you never put anything out, you're never gonna see progress. Like, even if any of those songs that I put out are shit, in 10 years I can look back and be like, all right, that was like, you have to start somewhere. So it's like you got to put it out and like create your history as you go along. If you never put anything out, you have nothing to look back at and see what changes you can make. So I guess in other words, you got to put out some shit, whether it's shit or not, but you got to at least test it and see what's like. You got to put anything out that you can in order, because like eventually you'll strike gold. You know, like this is the age of, like, no one's really, like, the albums are kind of faded out. It's the age of singles. Like, people want to hear the next radio single, or like that's like what it is. It's like, and if they put out an album, it's 95% of the tracks on the album aren't heard on the radio, and it's like one or two songs. So like everybody wants to hear the 3-minute radio single, and that's also kind of why I was putting it out in this format. I didn't release any of that as an album. I just kept releasing singles, because you can just throw out a song and be like, hey, listen to this. In a couple months, I'm going to throw out another one at you. Kind of keep people interested. It's a different format. You kind of got to play the game a little bit.
I think that's so right. I mean, from every musician I've talked to recently, I had like a couple interviews this week, and everyone says the same thing. Less and less of these long albums, because I mean, I was a music fan. It felt like 2 years ago even, you said, oh, here's an hour-long album. Oh, let me sit down and listen to this. Now I look at a track listing, it's 55 minutes. I'm like, that's a while. Like,
I know.
Well, let me just pick out the best songs, right?
And
I think that's so right, is that if you do release a project, maybe rather than release in a year 1 hour-long album, space it out 2 30-minute projects over the course 6 months apart or something.
And that's kind of what I was doing. You know, I released those 4 songs over the span of like 5 months, and I just kept having material to release, and I could just go in at my own leisure and just record and kind of keep feeding the people who wanted to hear what I like. It maintains your audience instead of just throwing 10 songs out and then hoping some of them grab and some of them stick. You just keep feeding them, you know, one treat at a time, and then hopefully string them along. And then, you know, that's what you see, like a lot of, like you were saying, you're into hip hop, like a lot of rappers and hip hop artists are like, singles are huge in that world, in that genre. So it's like people will put out so many songs in a row, and then it's like one of them is bound to be a hit, whether it's even a good song or not.
It's bound to get something.
It's bound to get something. And that's kind of the point. Like, it's maybe something will become like the next soundtrack to a viral video or something. You never know. And like, it's kind of like I'm playing the game, but it doesn't mean that I'm not a huge, like, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the single based market. I love albums.
Same, yeah.
Like, like I said, like I'm a huge fan of the Allman Brothers and bands that in the 60s, you know, played at these venues like the Fillmore, where there's like every band in the 60s had like a Live at the Fillmore album, whether it's in San Fran or New York, Fillmore West or East. And it was like live versions of albums that they put out. And like the same thing, I'm a huge jam band guy, so like the Grateful Dead, a huge part of their fan base and like why they got big is because they let you record at their shows, and then people would pass around cassettes, and like they would make like bootleg tapes. So like it's like, oh well, I want to hear like Ripple by the Grateful Dead at, you know, the Spectrum or at JFK Stadium in 1970. You know, people like to see different song, like how the song is at different venues, and like that's how they get a cult following, because it's like you're hearing the same song, but like maybe this night it sounded just amazing, and you want to go back in the vault and find what it sounded like that night, you know, and then another night how it differed, and like that's how it kind of got, like that's kind of the world I come from and how I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you got to play the game, and you got to go with how people are behaving nowadays. Like with the streaming the way it is, you kind of are forced to do that, because you know, and like the way songs and records get like platinum status nowadays are by how many streams you get, not by how many album sales you have necessarily. Mm-hmm. You know, like if someone listens to your song or downloads your song on iTunes 10 times, even if it's the same song, that's like the equivalent of an album. Yeah. You know, so it's like a completely different world, and that's just something that I think myself and a lot of other modern musicians are trying to navigate and adapt to.
Exactly.
And I don't know if I'm good at it or not, but there's a lot of guys who are really great at playing that game, mm-hmm. and that's something that I'm trying to just kind of learn and go with the flow with.
Exactly. I mean, I'd have to agree with you. I love a good album. I still collect vinyl records, you know.
Same.
Exactly. Like you gotta have to just play it front to back. But I will notice that like a lot of the people, you know, we're relatively close in age. Like our people our age, people my age, or whatever. It's like, you know, I always hear them. They put on a playlist. That's what they always do. They put on a playlist, put it on shuffle. Mm-hmm. That's how everybody listens to music nowadays. And for me, I don't really do that. But if you want to be an artist, like you said, that you got to play that game. You got to play the singles. You got to know. You got to do it that way.
Yep.
And I think the cool thing about your songs is that I noticed was that you were releasing them as singles, which is playing the game today.
Yeah.
But still but not conforming to maybe the sound of today. You were doing your own sound, so it was playing the game in today's standards, how to be successful, but still being true to yourself.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from me not liking to conform to shit. And like I've said, that's gotten me in a lot of trouble, you know. But like I kind of like that way. I kind of like living a little bit more rebelliously. And I'm not a huge rule follower. I like doing things my own way. I'm kind of stubborn. Mm-hmm. And I want things done the way I want them done. So it's like I'll play the game as much as I have to, but I still want the sound. Like whatever I hear in my head, like I'm gonna do, whether it's popular or not. There's a certain point where you got to find that balance between selling out and kind of staying true to what keeps you happy and fulfilled as a musician. Like I'm not just gonna all of a sudden just start producing pop hits because
maybe this will
catch on, might catch on and make me famous. Like there's a certain balance you got to strike where like you're maybe writing catchy shit, but also you're like still writing to what you like. Mm-hmm. And like there's a certain level of like in terms of like writing, like I never write in terms of what do I think the people want to hear.
Yeah,
that's a very pop oriented mindset. I just write what I feel, and I think that's a big difference between the pop genre and kind of what I do. And also, like, quick side note is that I feel like every genre in this age, you know, 2010 and onward, I feel like every genre has a pop element to it. I feel like the country's very popified. Hip hop and rap are almost popified.
Definitely.
The rock is popified. You have like people like, and I'm not bashing in any way, but like Imagine Dragons is like a rock band.
But
to me,
are they really a rock?
Are they like? It all depends on what your definition is. Like to me, a rock band is like Zeppelin or the Stones.
Yeah.
Like a classic rock group. People, and it's crazy because people call that dad rock, which just blows my mind. But like, besides that, because you know I'm only 22, but I feel like I'm an old man because like even like, you know, I'm a couple years older than you, but like even like people your age are almost like there's even like a slight difference there.
Yeah, there is.
Because like I'll call it classic rock, and like an 18-year-old might call it dad rock, which is hilarious to me. But like I don't bash any of it. I have my preferences, but like to each their own, I guess. But it's just funny because like a band like Imagine Dragons is considered a rock band. That's completely different than my definition, which is all right. That's completely fine. But that just kind of speaks to, you know, how things have changed and how pop-oriented every genre has become. You know, even the pop is even more pop.
Oh my god! Some of those people, like, it's just so commercialized, and it's like that thing of, you don't want to blame them because these people are making money. Like I'm never gonna blame anybody for making that much cash. I wish I could be them. Yeah. But so you can't blame them for that. But you also have to, in my mind, appreciate the other artists who don't do that. Who like you said, stay to their own sound and be who they are.
Yep, and that's something that I've always appreciated. One of my favorite musicians, and a lot of people shit on him, but I love John Mayer. I always have.
Oh,
a lot of people only see the pop element of him, but in reality, like, he's a fantastic guitar player, and now he's playing with the
Grateful Dead.
They're Dead and Company, which is like
kind
of like a tribute to them. It still has like the original members plus him and O'Teal and a couple other guys, Jeff Cimenti, but and a lot of people shit on him for that because they're like, oh, you're not anything like Jerry Garcia, you can't take his place, oh, what's this pop dude doing with the Dead? So like, but at the same time, like, he's somebody who kind of played that game where, you know, a song like Daughters or like any of that stuff, Your Body is a Wonderland, Who Says, like any of those that pop stuff that he kind of broke into the music industry, and then like now he's doing his own stuff. He's doing a lot of blues rock. He made a couple like country, folky kind of albums. Now he's playing with one of the biggest jam bands in the world. So it's like he's kind of someone who played that game and kind of made it work for him, and he's worth a lot of money, and he's probably happy as shit because he's played it all.
Yeah, I love some of his like newer records, definitely. And I mean, I think a good definition of like John Mayer is that, like, yes, he obviously has like songs like Your Body's a Wonderland.
Yeah.
But I think what that allowed him to do was make a song like Waiting on the World to Change, which I really like those lyrics. I think it has this kind of like cool meaning to it, and something that's pretty unexpected for a song that's considered maybe a pop song.
Okay.
To have kind of like a somewhat of this like talking about, you know, political and just how indifferent his generation is to the political spectrum.
Yep.
Like, you wouldn't expect that in a pop song. So I think, like you said, he played the game, was able to maybe have some songs that, if he didn't make Your Body is a Wonderland, would Waiting on the World to Change be a pop song? I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like people's definitions of what things are, which is like a very vague phrase. But like the territory is so arbitrary because everybody defines anything however they want. Which is like such like a trippy thought, but it's like that's just the truth. Like, just because like I'm not the biggest fan of pop, like as much as I'd like to shit on pop, I can't, because everybody has their preference, and someone's preference may be my music, and I don't want someone to shit on them because they like my music.
Exactly.
So I don't know.
So we're talking about all this stuff. I understand you're working on some new music. Yeah, you're working on some new music, though. It said you were working maybe on like an EP or something along those lines. Just kind of now, we're wrapping up 2018. What's your mindset? What are you working on for this next year?
Yeah, so I actually have a lot of cool stuff in the works. I have so many different original songs of my own that I want to continue into 2019. Some fresh stuff that some people know. That I've been playing for a couple years, but I haven't recorded. I have so many songs like that I've played live and have never actually, set to tape, like stuff that I would love to get out there, and I think I need to get out. It's almost like, it's kind of funny because it's almost like something that you feel obligated to do. It's like inside, you gotta get it out.
Yeah.
It's like a sneeze. Like you have to do it. So I have some of that stuff working, some more solo stuff that I want to do. But actually, yesterday, it's very, very fresh. Yesterday, with three buddies, I started a new project that we're going to be kind of working on, and it's I'm exclusively playing sax in the project. It's going to be essentially a funk jam band with me on sax, one of my buddies on guitar, and then a bass and a drummer. So it's a 4-piece, and we're going to be doing a lot of our own writing. which is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I finally feel like I have the guys to do it, and we have the connections to get some cool gigs, and I'm just excited in general, and I think we all are, because it was a good practice, good jam. We kind of went into it open-minded, literally just yesterday, here in Philly, and who knows what will become of it. Maybe nothing, you never know, but like the more people you play with and the more projects you become a part of, the more chance you have of something striking. And that's kind of the reason why I play with so many people. But in terms of what I'm doing this year, I'm going to be writing more of my own stuff. I'm going to be trying to get this funk group off the ground, and I have my mind set on some different venues that I love to play at in the area. So I think that's kind of the goal. I also would really like to do more of a regional or even national kind of tour. I'd like to do, because you don't have to be famous to go on tour, which I think is another misconception. If you have the money and the means, just get yourself booked instead of at your local bar. Try to find something, who knows, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, more south. Like you
as you work your way down, you just
keep working.
Yeah.
The more you get out and play, especially out of your comfort zone, even geographically, the more exposure you get, the more experience you have playing in front of different people who aren't just from your hometown or from your city. So I think that's another goal. I want to get out there more and kind of expose more people to my brand. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of the goal, and just kind of
that's what progress looks like in 2019.
Yeah, I think for Eddie the Kid, that's the idea. I have a lot of different stuff in the works, but that's the thing, because like all my solo stuff, I tend to sing and play more guitar, and then in more of like this funk project and some of the other bands I play live in, I play more sax, mm-hmm. which is cool because I get to kind of get fulfilled musically, spiritually, whatever, like in all ways, because I'm kind of diversifying what I'm doing. So I'm never bored, because I'm playing with a new band every Friday and Saturday, and the genres are different, the cast is different, so you gain so many different friends and just different people in your life that you get to enjoy creating with, which is something that's awesome, because it's always fresh.
Mm-hmm. I think you're so right with the touring aspect. Like, nowadays it's the thing. You gotta be touring to make money, and just as an artist, like you said, you played your hometown, like around Philadelphia all the time. Get out to that new place where they haven't heard of you before. Get out in front of some fresh faces, and like you said, you learn so much about that. So I think that's a really cool idea for you.
Yeah. I think especially in the current climate of the music industry, with the streaming and everything, you're not making that much money off of streaming music. You're making money off of touring and merchandise. It's like physical goods. It's either like playing live or selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
Which, that's just part of the game you got to play, like we said, and I have no problem doing that.
Get out in front of people and sell some T-shirts and play some shows.
Yeah, get out of Philly a little bit and, just try to make my name other places and just get more people seeing me. I think that's the main goal, just always trying to push for progress, and just even within myself, and like just kind of like even on a non-music level, like I kind of grow as a person, like in a parallel way, like as my music grows, I feel like I grow, like I learn more about myself with this whole musical experiment that is this career that I'm trying.
Gotcha. Well, I certainly love your songs. Like, I'm looking forward to all that stuff. I'll have to come out and see you at a show, because I want to hear some of this stuff live.
Yep.
And thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jackson. Thanks for having me on.
And after that, I got to give a big thank you to Eddie for coming on to the show. Really appreciated him. Got a chance to do a sit-down conversation. I usually don't get to do too many of those in person with a lot of my interviews over the phone or Skype or things along that line. So loved getting a chance to talk with Eddie. Remember, go down in the description of this podcast on whatever site you're on. Check out all of Eddie's stuff. I have his website. I have his social medias. I have some of his songs down there. My personal favorites, Rain Comes Down in Philadelphia, as I mentioned in the interview. Two really great songs. If you're in the Philadelphia area, or even if you're not here on the East Coast area, maybe, as he mentioned in the interview, check out his website, see if there's a show coming by soon with him, because he's definitely an artist that I'm going to go see live soon after talking with him. Just an awesome guy, makes really cool music, really glad to support him. So that was Eddie the Kid. And stay tuned for more local Philadelphia musician interviews right here on Anything Goes with Jackson Neill, because, I'm based out of Philly. Might as well show some love right back to the city of brotherly love. And with that, that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, check this out on all of your favorite feeds. Subscribe to it there. Got some more great podcasts, some more great ideas coming out in 2019. So remember, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JacksonNeill20. Links to that in the description as well. And just thank you so much for listening, and I guess I'll see you all next year.